It's landmine season, baby.
This is the worst.
Muta Zitabanakis. Welcome into the worst fantasy show. I am your host with the least, Jack Lucenay. We are here on week 4 of NFL football. Before we get into this week's matchups, we are stopping off and talking about some trades.
Show me the money!
So this is a brand new segment on the show this year. If you guys have any questions, trade questions, you want to drop them in the comments, feel free, and we'll try and hit them in between. But otherwise, I know nobody gives a shit about your fantasy league. I get it. But I thought it would be good to have at least some real-life examples of some trades. So I went through some of my leagues, and I pulled some trade offers that I have sent. So we can kind of look through kind of the reasoning why, maybe how it helped even if the trade was rejected, which 3 out of 4 of these were, which is kind of a mantra that I want to instill in general. But yeah, we already got a comment here before we get started from Twitter. Should I trade away Ramondre Stevenson and Devonta Smith for Nico Collins and T. Higgins in full PPR? Man, starting off difficult. Okay, Devonta Smith going through concussion protocol, probably not going to play this week. Was looking pretty good otherwise. However, you would assume now by the time that he gets back, if A.J. Brown can also come back, we kind of maybe see a little bit more of kind of that relegation to that wide receiver 2 role. Ramondre Stevenson, very clearly the running back 1 and the best offensive weapon for his team. However, I really love Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins is a baller. I think he's ascended into that not elite tier of wide receiver, but just below it, like kind of where Chris Olave and Drake London were being drafted. I think if we were redrafting, he would be going right around A.J. Brown, just to kind of give a purview of how I think his value has risen. And I think T. Higgins, once he gets on the field, and he's on the field, but like once he gets healthy and right, like we all know, like with T. Higgins, it's spike weeks. And then I love that you're giving some background here. Wide receivers are JJ, Deontay Johnson, JSN, Waddle, and Judy. And then running backs, Kamara, Kyron Williams, David Montgomery, Jerome Ford, Austin Eckler, Cam Akers. So I like that. I think I would do that trade. I think Jerry Judy, kind of an irrelevant piece, and Jalen Waddle, unfortunately, without a quarterback until Tua comes back, I think is also irrelevant. And now you're hurting with Devonta Smith. Even if I know Nico Collins is now nursing a hamstring through training camp, but he's a big, tough boy. He seems like the type to play through stuff like that. So I actually don't hate this. I would take Nico and T. Higgins by just a little bit, I think. But yeah, going back to kind of what we were discussing here. Oh, I just caught a mosquito. So we'll start with the first trade offer I sent. This was a rejected trade, but the manager got back to me. This was in the Megala Bowl. So it was rejected but considered. And what I like about this trade is that it opened up a line of dialogue. To where, now me and this manager were negotiating. Now, ultimately, we did not come to a deal that we both found suitable. In this instance, again, I view Jerry Judy as kind of an irrelevant piece. And as much as I love Braylon Allen, I think he's very much an ancillary piece as long as Breece Hall is in the picture. Whereas I view Devin Singletary as a clear lead back right now. And as much as Michael Pittman might be struggling because of Anthony Richardson, I mean, Amari Cooper was struggling just as much because of Voldemort, a.k.a. Deshaun Watson. So to me, this is a little bit of a wash in terms of the wide receivers, but where I was really trying to upgrade was my running back and get another really solid running back in the flex. I feel like it's a big advantage this year if you can have a couple studly running backs and then a couple running backs in the flex in that RB2 tier range. So like Devin Singletary, David Montgomery, Brian Robinson. Those have all been kind of trade targets of mine. So again, this is the type of trade where it was rejected, but the guy said, hey, it was a good offer. It just didn't really fit what I want to do right now. In terms of giving away Devin Singletary, he felt like he was thin at running back, too thin to make this deal. Another team might have been willing to do it. So that's, again, just opening the lines of communication. Like, again, 3 out of these 4 that I'm going to show you were rejected. And that's kind of the key. It's like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, the old Wayne Gretzky saying. So, yeah, you really got to send, like, if you're really aggressive about your trade offers and you send out, like, legitimately dozens and dozens of trade offers a year, expect that most of them will be rejected. But the ones that go through, they ultimately will help your team. And he said he got Ramondre off waivers too. So in a shallower league like that, yeah, I would definitely be making a trade like that. I feel like I just want the best player in the trade usually, and I view that as being Nico Collins in that case. So this was another example, identifying needs and attacking those needs. So I, found another team that was very wide receiver needy. And again, Devin Singletary is the type of running back that, yes, he's got a solid role right now. I don't think people view most fantasy managers, I don't think they view Devin Singletary as like an absolute must hold. I do think people would still be willing to trade the Devin Singletaries of the world, the David Montgomerys of the world, the Brian Robinsons of the world. So those are running backs that I've been targeting because they are still getting 15 to 20 touches a week, and that is considerable in fantasy football right now. It's also very consistent, which is something that I think has been lacking through these first 3 weeks of NFL football. And so the more consistency I can get on my fantasy football team right now feels like the better I will be for the remainder of the season. So again, sending a Brian Thomas Jr., who very much viewed as an ascending piece. I think, he's had flashes, but has yet to have really that true breakout game. And maybe I end up missing out on that, that sucks. But again, in that situation, I was looking at a team that needed a wide receiver. I need a running back. Hey, let's make a deal. Speaking of making a deal, let's actually get to one that got through. All right. So this was in a 12-team super flex. This is a completed trade. This is legit. Went through today, actually. So I initially actually sent this off for, I think it was, I had sent like Jared Goff, Devon Achane, and something else but I was really just trying to get Anthony Richardson and Kyron Williams. And then he was the one that actually countered with this version of the trade that also involved DJ Moore and AJ Brown. So again, very specific. This is full redraft for one thing. So this is very much a 1-year window. Not only is it a 1-year window, it's this fantasy season, and we're already now 3 weeks into the season. And I am 2-1, but I am a lucky 2-1. I very much could very easily be a 1-2, 0-3 team, and I'm struggling with injuries. I have AJ Brown, I have Cooper Kupp, so I've been hit with injuries on this team, and it's a super flex league. So I understand that Anthony Richardson has struggled in terms of his passing, but he is a unicorn in terms of the rushing after the Pittsburgh game this week, which I do expect to temper my expectations. I do think he will have, as long as he stays healthy, a really solid fantasy year. And with what I've seen with this depressed scoring across the board in the NFL, I'm trying to take more shots on getting those rushing quarterbacks, those unicorn quarterbacks that can break fantasy. Yeah, maybe he has a dud week where he lets me down, but the weeks that he comes through, he's going to come through bigger and better than Jared Goff. And I was really into Jared Goff this offseason. I thought with all the dome games and with the offense and with everything that Jared Goff would be a really solid borderline, like back-end quarterback one option, and it has not worked out that way. So I feel like I get a slight upgrade to Anthony Richardson, even though he's struggled. And then same thing with Devon Achane. Like, I love Devon Achane. I'm not worried about Kyren Williams. Plus, I also in this league saw that Blake Corum was on waivers. So I was like, hey, let me target Kyren Williams here. I can just scoop Corum off waivers, make sure I have Rams running back, which is a super viable fantasy relevant piece. And with Devon Achane, as much as I love his explosivity, and we kind of saw it a little without Tua, I think we also have seen a full game of, Chip Skylar Thompson or, fucking Tim Boyle, O'Boyle Rules or whoever else, jabroni quarterback they get, unless they actually trade for a viable backup quarterback. Like, the defenses, and Tennessee especially is a solid team, like they're going to be able to stop Devon Achane or at least reduce again the explosivity. I don't think that he's going to be popping off for 30, 40 point games anytime soon. And then AJ Brown obviously dealing with a hamstring, DJ Moore dealing with a rookie quarterback. But I mean, if you hope and assume that Caleb Williams can ascend maybe, or at least keep throwing the ball 50 times like he did last week, then DJ Moore, I mean, he's got 28 targets through 3 weeks. So again, a little bit of a downgrade on DJ. Not a little bit. I feel like it's a decent downgrade from AJ Brown to DJ Moore. That's assuming AJ Brown comes back. He's still not practicing this week, so I don't think he's back this week. If the hamstring lingers more than 2 weeks at this point for me in fantasy, it really is creating a liability on my roster. Also because he's constantly being tagged questionable when I know that ultimately he's going to be placed out, and it's really fucking up my ability to manage my roster. So again, getting some more consistency from Kyren Williams, trading off to get that unicorn ability from Anthony Richardson, and taking the healthy DJ Moore, even though he might have the rookie quarterback. It's like, well, by the time AJ Brown is back, if Caleb Williams can also get better, then it maybe is a little bit of a wash there. So that's the risk that I'm taking. And we'll just slide into our last one here, just because I mentioned risk. You gotta be a little bit risky sometimes and be prepared to aim. I always say shoot for the stars and you'll land on the moon. So you can see on the left side here, I sent the trade offer, kind of the same thinking of, I have Jared Goff, DJ Moore, and Devon Achane in this league. Okay, let me send for, I know Anthony Richardson has struggled and Xavier Worthy, except for kind of the one first game, has struggled a bit. But obviously Breece Hall is a huge piece. I'm assuming that the manager here is going to tell me no when I ask for this deal. So what I'm able to do then is pivot and counter. Okay, no problem. I understand you don't want to trade Breece Hall. What if struggling Brandon Ayuk, who I expect to get better, Kyren Williams, who obviously is one of my trade targets, as we saw in the last trade, and still Anthony Richardson. This one also was ultimately rejected. But again, it's, this second offer, very much, there's leagues where either it could have gone through, or at least, again, you're creating that dialogue where the manager's going to say, hey, look, okay, I saw you send the first offer. Saw you send this second offer. Neither of those work for me. Here's an offer that would maybe work for me. And, sometimes they're going to send you something that's completely fucking out of left field. And you're like, yeah, there's no fucking way I would take that. And when that happens, I just let the talks die there. It does happen. Again, I go into the season thinking I'm going to send 100 trade offers, and I'm going to maybe 5 of them, if I'm lucky, will go through. So I really take a shotgun approach when it comes to trading. Not that I just said ridiculous trade offers hoping that they're going to accidentally slip and hit the accept button. I make sure that I still am sending trades where I'm like, I looked at their team. They need a wide receiver. I need a running back. Or they need a quarterback. I try to make the trades always as win-win as possible. But I send a fuck ton of them. He's got another one. I accepted the trade. Thank you. I'm also 3-0, so I'm trying to make those early adjustments, keep the ball rolling. I got T. Higgins and Nico Collins. So, yes, we got an accepted trade here on the show. Shout out to you. Yeah, I hope that works out for you. I do think, like I said before, Nico Collins is the best wide receiver there. And if, again, assuming Devonta Smith can come back, I mean, having Justin Jefferson, Deontay Johnson, and Nico Collins is a pretty strong wide receiver room. To pair with Kamara, Kyron, and David Montgomery. I think that's a really good core of a team. So, yeah, that's solid work there. All right, let's move into the matchups. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll try and hit them in between the matchups. But otherwise, we're going to try and slam through these as fast as possible. Unfortunately, we are dealing with a whole hell of a lot of fucking injuries. Nonetheless, we will do our best to get through this, starting with tonight, the Thursday night football matchup. The Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. The Cowboys are favored here. It is a 45.5-point over-under. I think you start who you got. Obviously, Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary are going to be in your lineup. Make sure they're not in your flex positions and that they're in your running back or wide receiver spot to give you maximum flexibility, capability going in to the weekend. But otherwise, you're starting those two. And then on the Cowboys side, I'm done with the running backs. Like, I think Zeke has proven almost at this point he is just a straight drop. As long as they're all mixing in, none of them are worthwhile. I think eventually maybe we see Rico Dowdle emerge and take over, but I'm not trying to start him right now on a Thursday night. I feel like there's better options. To me, this is CeeDee Lamb and Fergie-licious. Dak Prescott, kind of the usual suspects. Maybe if you want to throw a little Brandon Cooks in a deeper league. I know my buddy was asking me about Jalen Tolbert. Look, I drafted Jalen Tolbert once upon a time in Dynasty. He was a character guy along with Kyron Williams that I really, really liked. And those guys kind of do, they usually hit, but they often, or not often, but they can take longer to develop because they don't have the same physical and athletic skills as kind of like the higher draft picks. They really are like lunch pail, go to work, again, excellent character guys. So I as much as I like Jalen Tolbert's personality, I would not be playing him in anything short of like a 16 team or something crazy like that. All right, let's move into the Sunday matchup. Saints at Falcons, 42.5-point over under. The Falcons suddenly dealing with some more injuries. Bijan Robinson has popped up questionable, so that's something that you're going to have to monitor, but I would assume that he plays through. From what I saw, I didn't see it was anything major, but again, very much going to be on a need to monitor basis. If for some reason Bijan were to miss, Tyler Algier would become an immediate flex option. So he's someone that I would definitely be stashing on my bench, even if I'm not a Bijan manager. Drake London, I would start. Kyle Pitts, I would start. Kirk Cousins, even though I said you want to kind of start those other two guys, Kyle Pitts, because the tight end position is a fucking just atrocious, abysmal, like anyone who tried to draft elite tight end this year.
Go fuck yourself.
So based on that, Kyle Pitts has kind of just been like serviceable. So you play him, but Drake London, started to emerge a little bit last week. I think the Saints defense is underrated. Alvin Kamara also on injury reports needs to be monitored, but it feels like with him it's more of a veteran day of rest. Again, the Friday practice reports that are going to come out tomorrow are going to be crucial. Holy fuck. But yeah, if assuming a Kamara plays, I would play him. Olave, back in the flames with Olave. I think he's starting to hit a little bit. Taysom Hill looks like Taysom Hill should be back if you're desperate for a tight end plug and play. I know I dropped him in a league that I had him, so I'm assuming he was dropped in other leagues. So just keep an eye on that. But again, a lot of these games really are kind of shitty, mid, seemingly low-scoring games. There's not one game on this entire docket that goes over 50-point over-under, and in fact, multiple of them are under 40. And I would say even the majority are under 45, which is just atrocious. But yeah, just recapping there, assuming, again, they're healthy, you want to start the running backs, Bijan and Alvin Kamara, and then, of course, you want to start Drake London and Chris Olave. But, I mean, Jesus Christ. And Derek Carr, too, kind of turned back into a pumpkin. Again, depending on what your quarterback options are, I don't hate it, but I think there might be better options out there. For the next game, Bengals at Panthers. This actually might be one of the highest scoring games of the week, hilariously enough. It is a revenge game for one Andy Dalton, the Daltonator, Daddy Dalton, going back. Not going back, but he was hosting the Cincinnati Bengals that once upon a time so ingloriously dumped his ass. I'm playing Andy Dalton in a bunch of fucking leagues, and I did it last week, so that should tell you where I'm at in some of my super flex leagues, dealing with injuries and also just bad quarterback play overall. So I actually, again, I knew Andy Dalton was going to strike in this Dave Canales system. I played him in a bunch of places everywhere last week. I had him as a streaming option last week. I even had some crazy deep DFS lineups with Andy Dalton. Unfortunately, they were also with Adam Thielen. I should have gone Deontay Johnson there. Even though Thielen caught the touchdown, he ended up getting injured, and he's now on IR. So Deontay Johnson, I'm firing up Andy Dalton, Deontay Johnson, and Chuba Hubbard here with confidence. The other ancillary options, I need to see more and really see kind of how it breaks down. But those three, I am actually firing them up like over a lot of options. Like I'm just looking at kind of the slate here. I would start Andy Dalton over Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, who we just talked about in the last game. I would start him over Malik Willis, over Trevor Lawrence, probably over Matt Stafford, over Anthony Richardson, over Justin Fields, over Aaron Rodgers, probably over Deshaun Watson. I mean, hell, I might even start him over Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if Justin Herbert can't play, I don't even know if the Chiefs are really going to have to do that much to beat the Chargers. And that one, again, we'll get to it later, but they have a 39-point over-under for the Chiefs-Chargers games. Like, what the fuck is going on in the NFL in 2024? Oh, my God. All right. But, yeah, so I would, on the Bengals side, I mean, fire up Joe Burrow, fire up Jamar Chase, throw T. Higgins in there and hope for the best. I don't really like this running back room. If I'm playing one, it's Zach Moss. Chase Brown, the breakout is just the light at the end of the tunnel that feels like it's never going to come. But I'm kind of relegating myself to Chase, Higgins, Burrow, Moss, and if I'm real desperate for a tight end, I think Mike Gesicki, but that just feels like fool's gold, that's going to go away sooner rather than later. Like, It already felt like last week with Higgins and Chase both on the field that Gesicki saw a little bit less work than he did the week before. So it feels like one of them needs to be absent for Gesicki to really be relevant. All right, we got a question here before I move on to the next matchup. RGQ, shout out to you. Wide receiver, Flowers, Mooney, Pittman, Jaden Reed. Running back, Saquon, Jacobs, Najee, Chuba, 4. Can you help me start 3 wide receiver, 2 running back, and 1 flex? Should I drop anyone to pick up someone on waivers? I'm not really dropping anyone right now. The 3 wide receiver is concerning. I would have to definitely see, hey, who is on waivers? But theoretically speaking for this, 100% for me, Saquon and Josh Jacobs, assuming he's healthy, are going to be in your running back spots. Your flex spot, I'm going with Chuba Hubbard. I think Chuba has the upside. Najee Harris should play, but it's not the greatest matchup against the Colts. Their defense is a little bit tougher than people think. And he also had his arm in a sling, so I don't know what the hell is going on there, but he seems like he's going to play through it. But I feel like Chuba Hubbard has more upside. The only way I would play Najee is as a sub for Josh Jacobs. If for some reason Jacobs is still banged up and can't really go, then maybe you slide Najee in above him. But I would definitely have so I guess Saquon and Chuba are my 1 and 2, and then I'm probably trying to flex another running back. Flowers, I'm going Flowers, Pittman, and Jaden Reed. I know Mooney is a little bit of a PPR darling, unless it is full PPR. That's kind of the only way. Lazard, Sutton, Wandale, Yoshivas, Myers, Tolbert on waivers. Yeah. You know what? Darnell Mooney, I could see dropping Darnell Mooney for Alan Lazard, only because, and it feels like you're chasing touchdowns a little bit, but here's why. With the Denver matchup, Garrett Wilson is definitely seeing Pat Surtain, and so it feels like Aaron Rodgers is going to have to go somewhere else with the ball, and it feels like that somewhere else is going to end up being Alan Lazard again. So I think the Lazard King strikes again. So I actually think because of how rough it's been for Pittman, that's the only one that I'm not dropping Pittman, but I'm trying to get him on my bench if I can. So if I can drop Mooney for Lazard, who I think has a good matchup and has already produced and has that stupid chemistry with Ayahuasca, Captain Man. I think that's what I do. So we're going Flowers, Lazard, and Reed in your wide receiver spots, and we're going Saquon, Jacobs, assuming health, otherwise Najee, and Chuba for the running back and flex. And then we got Augusto here. Shout out to you. My running backs are Hall, Kamara, Etienne, Ford. My wide receivers are London, Rice, Neighbors, Godwin, and my tight end Bowers and Goddard. Would you do Etienne and London for Jonathan Taylor? Ooh. No, I feel like you're giving up too much. I like Jonathan Taylor, but Travis Etienne was the only really true positive in the Jaguars shellacking last week. He kind of got it done. He gets it done through the run and the air. I feel like Etienne is pretty close to Jonathan Taylor. They were even drafted very close in terms of where they were going in ADP in the draft before the season. So I think you're giving up way too much, giving up Drake London to move from Travis Etienne to Jonathan Taylor. That's my opinion. So I would keep Etienne in London, especially with all we've seen with injuries this year. It's I want as many guys as I can have on my roster that are relevant. I'm not just giving up Drake London just for shits and giggles here. And I feel with Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara, Etienne, you're pretty solid there. I would not do that trade. That's the one where I'm drawing the line there. And then with the addition of Higgins and Nico Collins, now who should I flex? Jackson. I'm still, I'm between Deontay and Montgomery, but with the full PPR, bro, Deontay Johnson I think it was 13 first look targets he saw last week. So I was really about this life last year that Bryce Young was going to be using Adam Thielen as the first look and also third down and red zone guy. And this year, that's Deontay Johnson right now with Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton's going to pepper the fuck out of him. So I would go with Deontay Johnson here. As much as I love David Montgomery, I would be going with Deontay Johnson. Now, keep an eye on Nico Collins, though, because, again, Nico with the hammy popping up randomly on injury. If for some reason Nico sits, I slide Deontay into that wide receiver spot, and I flex David Montgomery. That's how I do that. All right, where were we? We are on Rams at Bears. The Los Angeles Rams at the Chicago Bears. 41-point over under. Caleb Williams threw the ball 50 times last week, but like 30 of them are behind the line of scrimmage because Shane Waldron's offense sucks balls. I can't wait for that man to get fired. I was of the opinion that Eberflus should have been let go at the beginning of the season, just because I really hate when they bring in the new generational quarterback that's supposed to change your franchise. They're like, oh, but we're going to keep this old coach from last year for no fucking reason. Like, no, bring in Shane Waldron's head coach would have been just as bad. But I mean, like, you bring in, who's the kid there in Detroit? Ben Johnson is his name. He's someone like that, right? But anyways, as it stands, Keenan Allen with the heel, he's practicing. If he ramps up to full practice and he's back, I'm going to be out on Cole Kmet, but I'm still playing the wide receivers. Like, you know what this is breaking down to is last year with the Seahawks where, yeah, if you had JSN, you were trying to play him. That's Roma Dunes. If you have Tyler Lockett trying to play him, that's DJ Moore right now. And if you have DK Metcalf, I mean, DJ Moore kind of blends in between being DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but he saw 28 targets. Keenan Allen saw 10, 11 targets the first week when he was playing. So the way I'd prioritize is still DJ Moore, Keenan, assuming he's playing and he's practiced in full and he's healthy, then Roma Dunes, then Cole Kmet. But for me, it's like if Keenan plays and he plays for real, like it's DJ Moore and Keenan, and I'm kind of out on the other two guys. And then, you can't really play Caleb Williams as of yet, but he's definitely worth rostering, I guess, in a single quarterback as a potential high upside backup that could become your starter. In Superflex, you're kind of stuck with it because of the way that Superflex works with quarterbacks. If I had a really good running back or wide receiver, though, if I'm just loaded for some reason, I wouldn't hate. I would play Deontay Johnson in the Superflex above Caleb Williams this week, just as kind of an example. We got a question before we move on. Shadow is wicked. I'm 3-0. Would you trade ETN for Josh Jacobs? No. I wouldn't. Kind of talked about it earlier. I really like Travis Etienne. He was, to me, the one shining bright spot, even though the Jaguars looked like dog shit last week. He still kind of got it done through garbage time. He gets it done through the air. He's a good pass-catching running back. He is getting most of the volume still. I don't view Tank Brigsby as a threat to his job. I do think that there are better – I think there's – better play on the horizon for the Jaguars throughout the season. It does feel like they will eventually stop losing fucking every game. And Jacobs, I love Josh Jacobs, but he's just already dealing with so many injuries. The only thing that gives me cause for pause is I had Josh Jacobs the year he was the number one running back. And it just felt like every week he was dealing with injuries and then he would just come out and get 20, 30 carries. But that was also 3 years ago, it feels like already. So maybe that's not something that's repeatable. Also, colder weather in Green Bay. Maybe that has something to do with it. But no, I really like ETN. I just feel like that's too sideways. And if Jacobs is continues struggling with injuries, you're going to end up regretting that trade, I feel like. Thanks for the input. I have Kyron, Jordan, Mason, and ET. Yeah, I feel like you're good there. Just stick with I. Plus, we'll get to it soon. But Christian McCaffrey, oh my God, this is turning into a Lev Bell situation, but not for a holdout. It's for an injury. Like what the fuck? All right. So yeah, Rams at Bears. We were talking about the Bears on the Rams side. I'm starting the running back. I'm starting Kyron Williams, and that's pretty much it for me. I like in a real desperation play, I would start Tutu Atwell. I don't think I would start Matt Stafford unless, again, it was a real desperation super flex play. But for the most part, this is Kyron Williams, and I'm out. All right. Vikings at Packers, 43.5-point over under. To me, this one is the closest thing to fire up everyone on the Vikings side because I do think Aaron Jones in an obvious position for a revenge game. I like Justin Jefferson every single week. Sam Darnold should play, so that makes Justin Jefferson even more viable. Jalen Naylor, maybe a deeper flex option. I think it's the Packers side that's really got me nervous here. I would play Jaden Reed kind of in desperation situations, or if I just don't have better options. Kind of earlier we were looking at Flowers, Mooney, Pittman, and Reed. I'm looking at Mooney, Pittman, and Reed, and I really see them very much in the same tier right now. Like Pittman might see the most targets out of those guys, but they're super inefficient. So it's like you're hoping that Reed finds the end zone, maybe get some manufactured rushes. Darnell Mooney is like pure PPR guy. So it's like, again, if you're telling me that he's in the same tier as Darnell Mooney, I'm not excited to play him, but I will if I have to. Does that make sense? And then Josh Jacobs, if he's healthy, I mean, you play him, but I would temper my expectations because the Vikings defense has been absolutely fucking killer. I know Malik Willis has been a nice story, but I was trying to pick up the Texans defense in a lot of places, and where I could not, I went and picked up Vikings defense because, man, they have just been so good that I think they're starting to be a just weekly set it and forget it defense. But I actually think in this matchup on the road against the Packers, they're going to have something to prove in a division matchup. I think they could beat up on the Packers a little bit here. I know Jordan Love is a possibility to play. Me personally, I don't expect it. I think it would be pretty wild if he did play. If he does play, that's going to change things, obviously, in terms of I would be more willing to start Green Bay wide receivers. But I would still limit myself to basically like Jaden Reed and Christian Watson there. And kind of make sure that Jordan Love is like fully back. But it's hard because it's a division matchup. They might play him, but I would hope that for the sake of his health, they held him out. I'm really not sure what they're going to do here. That one's kind of a toss-up, but yeah. Jaguars at Texans. This one, to me, just feels like it's going to disappoint again. But, I mean, Travis Etienne is just in your lineup every single week. Again, even last week when they were complete dog shit, he was fully involved, gets involved in the receiving game, so he's solid to me. I mean, I think I would take the shot on Brian Thomas Jr. depending on my team construct. Like if I'm just looking for a pure upside shot, and it's again comparing to the kind of the Darnell Mooneys of the world, the Michael Pittmans of the world, the Jaden Reeds of the world, Green Bay Packers wide receiver if Malik Willis plays. And again, I know he's been good, but the Vikings defense has been better. That's kind of where I'm going towards BTJ. But otherwise, he's probably finding the bench. For me, this is Travis Etienne or bust. And on the Texan side, again, now Nico Collins pops up on injury reports. Stephon Diggs is going to end up being the wide receiver one for this team by the end of the year by default because he's just the only guy healthy right now, it seems like. So Nico, monitor if he plays. I would still play him. But again, just something to monitor that he popped up with a hamstring injury. Tank Dell is dealing with his own injuries. So you can fire up Stephon Diggs. I would still play CJ Stroud because the Jaguars defenses look so atrocious. And if it is Cam Akers that plays, I think he's worth a flex play again, depending on your situation. Steelers at Colts, 40-point over-under. I mean, you're going to have to play Jonathan Taylor, but I would temper your expectations. If I can find a way to bench Michael Pittman, I'm doing it. Same thing with Anthony Richardson. I think you have to play him in most situations, but temper your expectations. On the Steelers side, I think a little bit more positive. I don't hate Justin Fields. I don't think it's a great matchup. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Road matchup against the Colts. Colts defense kind of middle of the pack. I feel like there's times when they show up and then other times where they can be had. But the Steelers have barely been able to score more than 20 points a game. So I guess, again, Fields for me is more of a baseline option. I do like George Pickens a lot in this game. The Colts do play a lot of man coverage, and he's able to obviously beat that with the bully ball, just mossing dudes. He almost had a crazy catch actually against the kid there from Denver, Pat Surtain Jr. So I like George Pickens in this matchup. If Najee plays and you have no other options, he's going to get 20 carries. I would play him, and I would play Fields if I really had to. But I'm not excited about any of this. And speaking of not excited about any of this, the Broncos at the Jets. Jesus Christ, the Denver Broncos at the New York Jets. The only really viable fantasy option in the passing game for the Jets is Garrett Wilson. It feels like he's going to be eliminated by Pat Surtain Jr. And then on the flip side, the Jets defense is particularly good against the pass. Denver can't run the ball right now. So it feels like I wouldn't want to play Bo Nix or any of the passing options or any of the running options. So I just don't want any Denver players in my lineup. And the only Jets player that I would want besides Breece Hall, I don't think I want him this week. So for me, this is Breece Hall, end of list. All right, let's move on. Eagles at Buccaneers. No, for real, though. Philadelphia Eagles at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a 45-point over-under. This feels like where a lot of our fantasy scoring is going to come from. A.J. Brown is still not practicing, though, so probably will be missing A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith in this game. So that means you fire up Dallas Goedert. I've shit on this man relentlessly, but he went 10 for 170, both career highs last week. I don't think he goes career highs again, but I think he is obviously going to be the number one target for Jalen Hurts here. And just historically, I think the Bucs have always kind of struggled against tight ends. Saquon is set it and forget it. He's the best running back in the league right now for fantasy. So you're playing Saquon Barkley, obviously. Jalen Hurts, you're going to hope that it happens with the rushing, but you're still probably going to play him. And then on the Buccaneers side, I think this is a nice bounce back game for Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Chris Godwin. Godwin popped up on injury report also with like a neck thing, but I think he's going to be fine and he's going to play. Now Bucky Irving, who would have been a nice flex play, he's popped up with a hamstring. He was downgraded. He probably will not play now, it seems like. So Rachaad White is going to be safe to play by default and pure gross volume, even though he's been not that great so far to start the season. All right. We got 5 games left, starting with the afternoon games. So let's take a 30-second dance break, and we'll be right back.
30-second dance party.
This is how we party.
All right, let's slam through these. We'll get through in a clean hour. We'll all go enjoy some Thursday night football. So, again, the afternoon games. Cleveland Browns at the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a 37-point over-under. Again, Again, Amari Cooper is on injury report, but I feel like he should play. And Njoku still working back from injury. Monitor that. If he plays, I would play him. I like Jerome Ford in this matchup. Seems like no matter how much they try to bring in Deonta Foreman or Pierce Strong or someone else, inevitably it ends up being Jerome Ford. So maybe we get a little bit of a breakout here because it feels like he's been just kind of there. But yeah, I would play Ford, Cooper. I mean, Voldemort if you really have to, but I'm trying not to. And then Njoku, if he were to play, I don't know if I want to play him his first game back, but I think you're kind of forced to if you held him that long. On the Raiders side, I mean, Zamir White is dead. Like, Zamir White's a very healthy running back because he's not getting any work. Alexander Madison stealing his touches and his all the receiving work and the touchdowns, which is all that would make him relevant. So I don't really. And now Devontae Adams is only popping up with a hamstring. Whether it's a hamstring or just wanting to get traded to New York, if he does not play, I saw Jacoby Myers dropped in a couple leagues. He's an absolute scoop and flex. I would even play Trey Tucker. And I really like Brock Bowers. Again, this is assuming Devontae Adams were to sit and miss a week. Like, you're talking about opening up 15 targets a game, which even if it's spread 5-5-5, I mean, Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker each saw like 7-8 targets apiece. So if they get a little bit more, if Brock Bowers especially gets a little bit more, I think that's a smash play this week. So again, monitor that injury closely. Those guys are all going to be viable. Also, I think Gardner Minshew is going to retain the starting job for now, and he would be a streaming option for me in like a super flex league. Chiefs at Chargers. Kansas City Chiefs at the I almost said San Diego, at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chiefs are wildly favored here. It's a 39-point over-under. No Isaiah Pacheco, no problem. We've got Carson Steele, the alligator man. I don't think he's a great play, but if you picked him up, you probably will end up playing him. I think, again, this is Rashee Rice right now and nobody else. Like, Kelsey's, you're playing him, but he's been irrelevant. Mahomes has been very disappointing for fantasy. I mean, Xavier Worthy is kind of flashed, but hasn't been consistent. So I think you can trust Rashee Rice. You can maybe throw some of those other pieces in and hope for the best. And then on the Chargers side, I mean, the Gus Bus had fucking 3 carries, and it's like, I don't know what we're doing anymore with this. So I think you can play J.K. Dobbins, even though it's a really tough matchup against a good Chiefs defense. I don't want to play Ladd McConkey or Quentin Johnston, right? And even if Justin Herbert does play, I'm not playing him in this matchup. I feel like if you're already having to play hurt against the Chiefs defense right now, like you're just a sitting duck and you're opening yourself up, honestly, for liability to get some kind of season-ending injury. And I'm really just not about that life right now. So, again, for me, this is J.K. Dobbins, and I'm very much tempering my expectations. The Sunday night matchup. Here's an actual potential barn burner. The Buffalo Bills at the Baltimore Ravens. A 46.5-point over-under. Just fire up everyone you got. Josh Allen, James Cook, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid. They're all going to be in your lineups. I mean, Keon Coleman is a very deep play. I would not rely on that. He got benched also for being late to the game or practice or something or another, but then caught a touchdown in the second half that saved you if you did play him. So it's not reliable. Curtis Samuel hasn't been a thing. So again, very much Allen, Cook, Shakir, Kincaid, move on. On the Ravens side, Lamar Jackson, King Henry, Zay Flowers. And the big question has been Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. I am still playing Isaiah Likely in situations like this. It might not work. You could say the same thing about every single tight end in the NFL right now. The thing is, teams that have good defense and the ability to get after Lamar Jackson, I'm going to take the shot on Likely and hope that like we saw against the Chiefs in week 1. They use him on a lot of the outlet routes, and he ends up getting a lot of the PPR work, maybe breaks one long, and we end up getting a decent game out of him that way. So, and Mark Andrews at this point, I got to see it to believe it, because this man looks like the bones of Zach Ertz running out there. All right, Monday night. Let's wrap this up, folks. Tennessee Titans at the Miami Dolphins. No, thank you. No, for real. Tony Pollard, Devon Achane. I don't want any of the wide receivers in this game. You can take your shot on Calvin Ridley. I've been trying to trade him away everywhere I can. If you have him, just put him in the lineup, because he's either going to get you 25 or 0, it feels like, with Will Levis. And I don't want to get the 25 on my bench. So I'll take maybe getting the 0 in my lineup. But then, like, the Dolphins wide receivers right now, like maybe Tyreek Pops, he's in your lineup, but you're not happy about it because the quarterback sucks. So we can move on to the Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions. Everybody, Geno, DK, Tyler Lockett, JSN, Charbonnet, assuming Kenneth Walker's not back yet. I think he's still working through the oblique injury and should be back maybe next week or in a couple weeks away. For the Detroit Lions, even though it hasn't been great, still playing Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown is obviously in your lineup every single week. And I would still go with Jameson Williams here as long as Sam Laporta is out. And that's it. That's it for me tonight. I hope you guys have the best of luck in your fantasy football matchups. Enjoy the Thursday night football. We will be back Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to answer all your last-minute start-sit questions. But until the next time, I'll catch all of you guys on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes